Right, hello guys. So in today's video I have a Void Warlock build for you that capitalizes on some recent buffs made to the Handheld Supernova charged special grenade that when properly built around is able to excel in even the highest levels of endgame content. Furthermore, despite not being on Prismatic, today's build will also feature multi-element synergies that combine powerful verbs from not only Void but also the Arc subfamily as well. And of course, to prove it to you, the gameplay you'll be seeing in this video is a mix between the Fallen Saber Grandmaster Nightfall, solo Master Lost sectors and general play. So without further ado, let's get into what I'm calling the Lightning Supernova Void and Arc Warlock build. So first things first, what exactly is this build going to offer you? For starters, our main objective is to spam the Handheld Supernova grenade as much as we can, because for those of you who are unaware, with the release of the final shape, the Void Warlock aspect Chaos Accelerant was buffed specifically for the magnetic grenade and by extension the Handheld Supernova. The damage of the grenade was raised by 20%, and also the knockback impulse had its maximum intensity increased by 10%, but more importantly, a 15.5% additional base regeneration rate bonus is now applied to our magnetic grenade for simply having Chaos Accelerant equipped. When everything is set up correctly, our grenade will have less than a 5-second cooldown that requires little to no setup that also grants Devour, Overshield, and a total 72% damage resist when all buffs are stacked. How are we able to do this? Well, let's take things one step at a time, starting with our subclass configuration. Once again, we are foregoing Prismatic in favor of the pure Void subclass, and kicking things off is our super ability of choice, Nova Bomb. Which variant, you may ask? I've gone for Cataclysm here, but the choice is truly yours. The damage difference between it and the Vortex variant is so minuscule it really doesn't matter. And I can imagine the inward pull effect from Vortex would also be quite nice for crowd control. Up next, we're taking Healing Rift for a little extra survivability in more high-end content like GMs for those moments where we can't fully rely on Devour to get us healed. We are sadly locked to Pocket Singularity as our melee option, but it too received a buff that makes it somewhat viable, at least compared to what it was before, which was literally the Knockback 2 enchantment from Minecraft. Now it's supposed to deal 50% more detonation damage, and to be fair, in testing I did notice the melee killing more things than it used to, so there is that, I guess. Our grenade of choice is of course the magnetic grenade, since that's what allows us access to Handheld Supernova. Speaking of, moving on to the aspects, our first is Chaos Accelerant, and with it we'll be able to charge and release our magnetic grenade to hurl a volley of 5 void projectiles that each apply the volatile keyword otherwise known as Handheld Supernova. The damage of the grenade is quite substantial and is usually enough to clear most red and orange bar units without hassle. Our second aspect is going to be Feed the Void. This is going to allow any void ability kill to trigger Enhanced Devour, which upon scoring a kill from any source while active will completely replenish our health and provide escalating amounts of grenade energy depending on the tier of enemy defeated. But at minimum, red bar enemies provide 15% grenade ability energy per kill. Kills with Handheld Supernova of course count for this as well, so once we have everything up and running with enough kills, the grenade essentially feeds itself. Now let's talk fragments. Our first fragment is going to be Echo of Expulsion. This is going to allow any void ability final blow to create a separate, smaller void explosion. The reason we want this is because those separate explosions have the possibility of getting even more kills, which serve only to cause more and more Devour procs, which when combined with our upcoming choice of exotic armor will almost guarantee that each grenade thrown will fully refund itself. Up next we have Echo of Persistence. This is going to make it so any Devour and Overshield effects applied to us last 50% longer, and in the case of Devour specifically, this now puts the maximum duration all the way up to 15 seconds. Following on from that, we have Echo of Harvest. This is going to make it so defeating weakened targets creates an Orb of Power and a Void Breach, but rather annoyingly, this is on a 10-second cooldown, but nevertheless, combined with our mod setup, you will occasionally see one kill create 2 orbs and a Void Breach. You might be wondering how we're able to weaken targets for that fragment to even work in the first place though, so that's where our last fragment comes in, Echo of Undermining. No Void build would truly be complete without Echo of Undermining because its powerful effect of allowing your grenade to apply the Weaken debuff is truly undefeated. This is of course going to allow our Handheld Supernova to apply Weaken as well, so every once in a while, each kill that it gets will spawn an additional Orb of Power as well as that Void Breach. That about does it for our abilities. Now let's talk weapons. Okay, so remember how I said at the beginning that we're also going to be combining several Arc keywords with this build as well, even though we're not on Prismatic? Well, dear viewer, I want you to bear with me here for a second, because Ex Diris is what's responsible for letting that happen. Now hear me out, Ex Diris on its own is a rather strange weapon, and it's not particularly bad, but it's not particularly good either, because when you strip it down to its most basic form, it's actually very comparable in DPS to a high-impact fusion rifle. So it's actually not that bad, but the thing that I'm more interested in is its catalyst. Its catalyst, known as Berserk Rush, allows any kill with it to make you amplified, regardless of whether you're on an Arc subclass or not, which at first glance you might think does basically nothing, but specifically this season we have a particular artifact perk that synergizes incredibly well with being amplified, which is Shieldcrush. Shieldcrush makes it so whenever you are radiant or amplified, your grenade recharges 25% faster and deals 25% more damage. You see where where I'm going with this, don't you? Now, for simply getting a kill with Ex Diris, which is pretty easy to do, even in high level content because it is a special weapon after all, your Handheld Supernova is dealing more damage and recharging faster. But also, the kill used to get amplified also spawns a Seeking Arc Moth that blinds enemies on hit, as well as dealing a hefty chunk of damage, so what's not to love? As for our other weapons, your primary slot should ideally be occupied by a weapon featuring an ability-based damage buff like Adrenaline Junkie or Desperate Measures, and Demolitionist. I've gone for a Breachlight with that exact role of Demo Adrenaline Junkie because every time I get a kill with my grenade, I get a 33.3% damage boost, and then any kill I get with it grants me a chunk of grenade energy. If you don't manage to get your grenade back from simply using it, that's what this weapon is here for. It just serves to top off your grenade, which usually will only take a maximum of 2 to 3 kills. Heavy weapon is also up to you, just assign it based off what type of content you're playing. For general play, I tend to use swords for movement, but for GMs or Master Lost sectors, that slot is usually reserved for either a rocket or a machine gun. That's it for the weapons. Now let's talk about what seals the deal on the build, the exotic gauntlet's Contraverse Hold. The main perk, Chaotic Exchanger, reads, resist incoming damage while charging your Void Grenade with Chaos Accelerant. Charged Void Grenades return grenade energy on a hit. The small shield is nice, it's yet another 20% damage resist to all sources, but the main part we're obviously here for is the grenade recharge bonus, which just so happens to be 2000% or 21 times base regen over 1.75 seconds, which when Devour is active is sometimes enough to fully refund the grenade. However, Contraverse does have a 4-second cooldown between activations, which you may notice in practice, so to circumvent that, we build a lot of our mod and artifact choices into grenade energy returns, but we'll get into that shortly. Just know that even without any buffs whatsoever, a charged grenade kill almost fully recharges the Supernova, which is already fantastic. Now let's quickly go over our stat distribution. Stats wise, you're going to want to prioritize discipline, then resilience, then recovery. Having 100 discipline is mandatory to reduce the cooldown of your grenade as much as possible, so do make sure to get that sorted first. With that out of the way, now let's move on to our choice of armor mods. For the helmet, we're taking double Ashes to Assets to receive that increased super energy on grenade kills because, as you can imagine, we're going to be getting a lot of grenade kills, and also we have Strand Siphon, but if you're using a different primary to Breachlight, then of course match the Siphon accordingly. For our gauntlets, we're going to be wanting triple firepower so that our Handheld Supernova can make an orb on every kill it gets, since with triple firepower it reduces the orb generation cooldown to just 1 second. Chest piece, like usual, is general resist mods, but just be sure to match them according to activity threats. For the boots, we're going to be wanting the combo of Absolution and Innovation to make it so every time we collect an orb, it grants 15% of our grenade energy and recuperation as well for the health boost when picking up said orbs. Finally, for the class item, we're taking Bomber for that 12% grenade energy on Riftcast, Reaper to make more orbs on weapon kill, and Special Finisher to replenish our Ex Diris ammo. With the combination of all the mods and fragments, each grenade kill spawns an orb that grants 15% grenade energy as well as another 15% from Devour, and sometimes 2 orbs spawn instead of 1 because of Echo of Harvest, which in that case grants even more grenade energy. Alright then, let's quickly gloss over our artifact perk choices now. Starting in column 3, we're taking Elemental Siphon so that on the off chance we're using a Void heavy weapon like Commemoration for example, multi-kills with it will occasionally spawn a Void Breach. Moving forward to column 4, we have Counter Energy for that nice 25% energy to our least charged ability after stunning a champion, and Void Hegemony so that kills with Handheld Supernova grant a small amount of overshield. If you manage to have a Void Overshield, tier 10 resilience, and are also charging a grenade with Contraverse Hold, you get a total 72% damage resist when in that state, which isn't too bad at all. Finishing things off with column 5, we're first going to want Expanding Abyss, mainly to buff the damage of our Nova Bomb versus beefier targets, since if you remember from the beginning we hit around 470,000, but with Weaken and Expanding Abyss this now goes to around 700,000, which is quite a sizable increase. Lastly, we'll of course be wanting Shieldcrush for that 25% regen and damage boost for our grenade like we discussed earlier. Alright then, now that all the technical stuff is out of the way, let's discuss the optimal gameplay loop. For starters, you should begin every engagement by getting a kill with Ex Diris to trigger Amplified, and then shortly after get a grenade kill to proc Devour and Chaotic Exchanges. Collect the orbs that the grenade makes, and by that point your next one should be fully recharged. Continue spamming grenades as much as you can, and if in some cases you don't get it back fully, simply get kills with your Demolitionist weapon to get it replenished. Also remember to keep getting kills with Ex Diris every once in a while to continue proccing Shieldcrush and Amplified. Before we end off, I also wanted to mention a few Fragment Alternatives, starting with Echo of Expulsion, since in high level content you don't always get kills with the after explosions, so the best one to use instead would ideally be Echo of Instability to grant volatile rounds to your Void weapons after scoring a grenade kill, which also act as shield piercing rounds mind you for barrier champions, so for higher level content this is likely the better option. The second is Echo of Persistence, which is nice for never losing Devour because it has such a long duration, but if you'd like you can also sub this for Echo of Starvation to proc Devour on Orb or Void Breach collection, regeneration, which also removes the need for recuperation on your boots because every time you pick up an orb, it's going to give you Devour, which full heals you. So you can sub this for another innovation instead, but it's really up to you and how aggressive you want to be playing. As always, there will be a dim link to this build at the top of the description for you to copy the build hassle-free. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the build, and I'll see you in the next one. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Your support means the world. And if you're really into the content I create, consider becoming a member of the channel, which not only lets you support me in the best way possible, it also nets you a whole host of awesome perks along with it. A massive shout out to these members up on screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.